In 1972, Bob Covington started Covington Aircraft in the back room of a hangar in Okmulgee, Oklahoma. Bob began rebuilding and servicing Pratt & Whitney radial engines. Soon, Paul Abbott, who worked at the airport, started working part-time for Mr. Covington.
I learned the engines from Bob. We got to pretty much do it all and learn it all, and he taught me some on the business end of it too, and he decided he wanted to move to Florence, Alabama to teach in a Bible school, and so that's when he asked me to buy the business, and that was after 3 years. Because the business started in 1972 and this was 1975, and I thought, well, if we don't go to the mission field, it'd be nice if we could have a business where we could make money and support missions.
We initially were going to be missionaries, but then that kind of helped us to turn our thinking through that we can be missionaries in this way where we can help support mission. So he made it where it was possible, where we could buy into half of it.
First 3-4 weeks when we were waiting to sell an engine, and Don West out of Nebraska actually bought the first engine. We were celebrating it after that happened, but it was pretty intimidating right away, just trying to figure everything out. I think God really grew our faith during that time because we had to just pray every day for He'd give us wisdom and how to make the right decisions and how to do the right thing. And as I look back now, we probably had more chance of failing than we did make it, but I never questioned that to begin with because we felt like God led us into this so He would go ahead and meet our needs. And He did, but a lot of times it took us right up to the edge before we did. When we got into some of those tougher times, Betty would always say, between you and me and God, we can do this. And I heard that over and over again. We found as we started giving away money out of the company, the more that we gave, the more God blessed the business. God promises in the Word that He will do that, and He proved it to Betty and I. 5 years later, in 1980, we purchased the other half of the company. However, during that 5 years, it grew fast enough that the second half cost us a lot more than the first half, I'll put it that way.
By faith, Paul and Betty began building a business that provided excellence to every customer. But Paul and Betty weren't alone. Back then, just like today, the Abbotts knew they needed a great team to be successful.
During that time, they needed to sell an engine. And I told Bob, I said, I can sell an engine. So they gave me a 1340 in the back of a truck, big route through Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and made it on down to a place in Canton, Mississippi, and talked to the guy. He said, I need an engine, but I don't know y'all. So we visited. He said, I'll think about this. I went on down the road to my folks, which lived in Louisiana. He called me. I wheeled around, went back up to Canton, and dropped that engine off.
I worked in a glass plant for 12 and a half years, and they shut it down. And I talked to my wife and kids, and they still refused to quit eating. So I come out here. I knew how to work on cars. I mean, all I knew about airplanes was they had wings. It was a lot of fun learning how to work on engines, and I really wish he wasn't here so I could say this, but we couldn't have had a better boss.
It's a lot of engines and took a lot of people, and we had guys that were willing to put their hand to the plow and get the job done. There was no such thing as a 40-hour week back in those days. It was great times. It was great times.
Business was booming at Covington. In 1980, Covington made a name for themselves after buying and overhauling 90 Pratt & Whitney radial engines from Yugoslavia. Demand for engine repair and rebuilding grew rapidly, and so did the company. With the new employees coming in, Covington continued their tradition of excellence by investing in those who joined the Covington family.
I started out in inspection and then went to superchargers and magnetos and briefly on final. Now I'm at cylinder department. Since 1977, so that's been 45 years. I think the fact that the Lord just kind of gels us together. You got to know people, you got to become their friends. At the age of 19 when I first came, I kind of needed that, and then I just grown and developed with Covington being more like family to me.
For my 25 years here, I've been very fortunate and honored to get to work personally with the Abbott family. And over these 25 years, I have never witnessed the family deviating, wavering from what our core values are. That is essential, and it's the heart of who we are.
When the money was tight and you could get parts that maybe didn't meet the standards, but you didn't have to pay near as much money for it. It could get you sidetracked, but Paul said, we're never going to compromise. The company will have to shut down before we'll compromise on the quality and putting substandard parts in the engine. So he either meets the needs and we can afford it, or else we don't do it. And I believe God's honored that over the years.
What was a hard decision to make was, do we want to try to go turbine? So I'm radial, I bleed 6 to 8, okay? So we're looking at a turbine world. So I come back and I said, okay, pray about it, and then started researching, working, what do we want to do? And I felt like God led us towards the PT6A, and after considerable prayer, I felt like that was the recommendation to make.
Pratt & Whitney was they wanted to meet with some different shops, and they were going to name one shop to be the Pratt & Whitney Agricultural Service Center, and that'd be just one in the whole world, actually. And there were 4 other contenders, so there was, I think, 5 of us total. We did our presentation and give the tour, and we're taking them back and showing them these radial engines, and we didn't have a turbine engine on the place, and didn't even know anything much about them other than what Ron had learned. But when they left there that day, I remember saying, there's a fat chance we're going to get it, because they've been all these turbine shops that are already doing this. But there again, God was in it. We met the president of Pratt & Whitney, and when he come and spoke at their open house, he said, we can teach people how to build engines, but we can't teach them integrity.
In 1994, Covington broke ground on their turbine engine shop after being selected by Pratt & Whitney to be their agricultural service center. All 40 Covington employees attended the groundbreaking of the company's newest venture. Once the team began working on the PT6 engines, Covington's legacy of quality continued into the turbine engine world, and the company experienced an explosion of growth and success. In 2010, Covington was selected by Pratt & Whitney again to become a designated distributor and overhaul facility, allowing Covington to bring their expertise to the corporate and military worlds of aviation. That same year, Covington's sister companies, Airwolf and Cascade Conversions, were added to the family, allowing the 3 companies to partner together to influence even more of the aerospace industry. Today, with shops in Oklahoma, Washington, the United Kingdom, and Brazil, and hundreds of engines serviced per year, Covington continues to thrive. They credit their success and growth to the values set in place 50 years ago.
In my opinion, it's not changed. The commitment to put God first, whether it's raising children, running a business, trust that He's going to see it through. I put it that you rest under His shadow and then you watch Him fight the battles against the armies that come against you. Whatever those armies are, if you're doing it God's way, then He promises He's going to take care of it.
What started in the small back room of a hangar with a handful of men and a pickup truck has grown into an international corporation. Throughout the last 50 years, Covington has not forgotten its humble beginnings, the faith of Paul and Betty Abbott, or the unwavering commitment to the values of integrity, affordability, dependability, and quality service. Today, we look back fondly on Covington's history and celebrate the dedication, determination, and integrity of those who have gone before. But we can also look forward to the future of Covington and the continued commitment to integrity in every business decision.